My husband always accused me whenever money went missing, but the night I forgot to mention a harmless dinner with coworkers, everything spiraled. He hired investigators to stalk my every move, convinced he'd finally catch me in a lie. But those same investigators ended up turning their cameras toward him, and uncovered a dark, shocking corporate theft he'd been running behind my back, from my own family's company. Before you judge either of us, listen to how everything unfolded, because trust me, you'll want to hear every twist. If you're new here, tap follow. This story is going to take you places you never expected. I always believed that marriage was supposed to feel like partnership, support, safety. But with Ryan, everything became an audit. Not a week passed without him questioning a bank charge, a missing 20 from the counter, a receipt that didn't match his expectations. "Where did this $80 go?" he would ask, holding the bank app like it was a weapon. "I bought groceries, Ryan. I showed you the bags," I would reply, exhausted. He never believed me. Suspicion was his comfort zone. But that night, the night I forgot to tell him about a simple dinner with my coworkers, was the night he decided he finally had proof I was lying. I came home late, smiling from an easy, harmless dinner at a little Tex-Mex place in Midtown Houston. I still smelled like grilled fajitas and lime. Ryan was standing in the living room, arms folded, jaw ticking. "Where were you?" "Dinner," I said. "I told you this morning." "No, you didn't." His face tightened. "And money's missing again." There it was. The accusation. Again. His voice rose. "You're hiding something, Maya." "I'm not stupid." "Ryan, it was a work dinner," I repeated. Nothing more. But he had already decided his truth. And the next morning while I was at work, he hired private investigators to watch me. Not just follow me. Watch me. Every single step. I didn't know at first. Of course I didn't. They were professionals. Quiet, careful, invisible. Looking back, I noticed clues later. A black SUV parked across from my office more than once. The same stranger passing me twice in the Galleria Mall. A man pretending to browse shampoo while watching me in Target. At the time, I thought Houston just felt crowded. Ryan's behavior grew colder. He stopped talking, stopped touching me, stopped even pretending to trust me. One morning, after I mentioned going to lunch with coworkers, his response was a chilling whisper. "Don't lie to me anymore, Maya. They'll find out." They. He didn't answer. That's when my stomach twisted. Something was wrong. That night, as I was cooking in the kitchen, he said it casually, like he was mentioning the weather. "I hired someone." Turned. "Someone for what?" "To follow you." His tone was ice. "To prove you're lying." I stepped back, breath gone. "Ryan, you hired investigators. For me. For the truth," he said. "You don't give it freely." My heart broke first. Then, slowly, it hardened. He was no longer my husband. He was my accuser. And I had no idea that the investigators he hired were about to expose him instead. 2 weeks later, everything began to shift. Started with a call. Not to me. To them. The lead PI, Mark, later told me that from the moment Ryan hired them, something felt off. He wasn't looking for truth, Mark said. He was looking for ammo. He demanded full surveillance. GPS trackers. Phone logs. Photos of who I talked to, where I drove, what I picked up from the grocery shelf. They expected to find an affair. Instead, they found a boring, predictable, painfully normal woman who spent her days at work, took the same routes home, bought the same coffee from the same corner shop. There was no story in watching me. But the real story surprised even them. Because while they followed me during the day, they also kept noticing him. Ryan leaving the house at midnight. Meeting unfamiliar men in parking garages. Carrying boxes into a storage unit under a different name. Mark had seen this pattern before. Fraudsters, money launderers, corporate thieves. So he quietly assigned part of his team to watch Ryan. Not because he had permission, but because something smelled wrong. And that's when everything began to unravel. It happened on a humid Thursday night. The investigators followed Ryan to a warehouse near the Port of Houston, an area busy with shipping containers, trucks, and men who didn't ask questions. Ryan carried a briefcase inside. 20 minutes later, he left empty-handed. Mark's team didn't break into the warehouse, that wasn't their job, but they documented the transaction. And then they dug hard through business records, public filings, company databases. And that's when they noticed something deeply disturbing. Ryan wasn't embezzling from his own employer. That would have been bad, but understandable. Well, he was stealing from my father's company, the family business I grew up in. The same business that trusted him enough to make him a financial consultant. And worse, he was using my name on some of the transactions. Fraud, identity misuse, corporate theft linked directly to me. I didn't know any of this yet. But the investigators were about to tell me everything. Because they realized Ryan didn't just distrust me. He was preparing to sacrifice me. I was making tea when someone knocked on my apartment door. It was 11:47 p.m. Ryan wasn't home. When I opened the door, two men stood outside. Mark and his partner Luis. Both in plain clothes. Both serious. I know this is strange, Mark said. But we need to talk. And they told me everything. Every secret meeting. Every fraudulent transfer. Every document signed in my name. I listened in silence, gripping the counter so tightly my fingers tingled. Your husband hired us to follow you, Mark said gently. But after 2 weeks, it became clear you weren't the one lying. Luis added, we found something else. Something bigger. When they slid the file toward me, my name on fraudulent accounts, signatures that looked vaguely like mine, my world tilted. No, I whispered. He wouldn't, but he would. And he did. Because if the fraud was discovered, the person on the documents, me, would take the fall first. Ryan wasn't just suspicious. He was preparing an exit strategy. One that didn't include me. One that blamed me. Ryan walked in at 1:13 a.m. Mark and Luis were gone by then, leaving me with the file and a decision. Ryan froze when he saw the papers spread across the dining table. What's all this? Your insurance policy, I said quietly. In case I caught you. His complexion went pale. Maya, I know everything, I whispered. The transfers, the shell accounts, the warehouse meetings. He laughed nervously. You don't know what you're talking about. Your investigators told me. The silence that followed was absolute. You think you can outsmart me, he snapped. You think you can take me down. No, I said. But you did this to yourself. For the first time in our marriage. I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing everything he stole. Then his expression hardened into something darker. You won't ruin this. Or me. I stepped back. My pulse hammered. My hands trembled. But I didn't break. You already ruined it, I said. I'm just done covering the wreckage. And in that moment, I no longer feared him. I feared what he was capable of. Ryan left before sunrise. He took nothing but his laptop bag. By noon, the investigators had already forwarded the evidence to federal authorities and my family's legal team. Ryan thought he could disappear. But investigators know how to follow ghosts. He was found 3 days later in a motel outside Lake Jackson, attempting to book a one-way flight under a fake name. The arrest was quiet, clean, but the fallout was messy. The embezzlement totaled almost $4 million. Half of it tied to my family's development projects. All of it documented in my name. The investigators testified on my behalf, explaining Ryan's motives, his surveillance of me, his attempt to frame me. Every step he took to prove I was lying only proved how deeply he was lying. The case broke open with a force no one expected, and I walked out free, but not unharmed. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Houston, started therapy, returned to work, rebuilt slowly. Some nights I stood on my balcony and wondered how I missed the signs. But healing taught me something important. People like Ryan don't reveal their darkness all at once. They bleed it slowly, drop by drop, until you're drowning without realizing it. The investigators who were hired to destroy me ended up becoming the people who saved my life. And sometimes I still think about the night they knocked on my door. The night the truth finally chose a side. My side. My freedom. My future. So if there's anything you take from my story, let it be this. Trust your instincts, especially when someone forces you to doubt yourself. Manipulation can feel like love when it starts, but it never ends that way. Protect your peace, protect your name, and never let someone twist your honesty into their hiding place. And if you're listening to this, remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the beginning of finally speaking your truth.
If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen play out?